This program is proudly brought to you by the Peel Dance Bar, corner of Peel and Wellington Streets, Collingwood.
Hello, it's blah blah blah, it's Bent TV, it's Monday night, we're at the Peel, and yes, we will have a drink, Tom. We'll have several drinks when we finish here in the back bar, which of course doubles as the Bent TV studio. Tonight we're going country. We are country, really. I'm country. Actually, Drew Dax is not country, but
I lived in the country for 5 years.
You did live in the country for 5 years. We've got a rural link here everywhere. We've got everybody's favourite rural and lesbian GP, Ruth McNair. Welcome, Ruth. This is not your first appearance on Bent TV, is it?
I'm becoming a regular.
Yeah, and you're very welcome.
Thanks.
We've also got Ian Seal. Ian Seal is a project worker with Family Planning Victoria. Welcome, Ian.
Thanks.
And we've got Daniel Witthouse, and Daniel Witthouse is a former project worker with the City of Greater Geelong. And we're going to be talking about the experience of what it's like to be out, a gay, a lesbian, a transgender or a bisexual, although we're going to have a bit of trouble with the transgender here anyway. Maybe you could pretend to be transgender today, Drew. I guess we've all got our own little stories about being out in the country. I guess I start with you, Ruth. You've practised as a GP in the country, haven't you? Did you come from the country originally?
No, I came from the city, moved out there and came back.
So where did you practice?
I was in Bacchus Marsh, Dalesford, Swan Hill, a long while back.
Dalesford? Bacchus Marsh. Bacchus Marsh is almost not country these days, but...
it's country atmosphere.
Yeah, there's paddocks in between it and Melbourne still, isn't there?
Yeah.
Well, you said Dalesford. Are there gays, lesbians, bisexuals and transgenders in Dalesford and Hepburn Springs?
Yeah, but I worked in the hospital and that was the most homophobic atmosphere that I came across.
How was it homophobic?
Probably every day I was there was some comment, against the people who are setting up new businesses in the town. Well, there's another two gay boys down there, what are we going to do about this?
Is that, I'm not excusing the locals' attitude, but is that partly distrust of new people in the country?
No, it was more than that.
It was more than that? It was more than that, yeah. Clearly a fear or a dread?
Yeah, I think it was a fear that the town was being taken over and that they had no control over it, and this was the old guard, the people who'd been there for many years. And I guess they weren't too happy with the importation of the city lifestyle.
I thought the lesbians especially, but also some of the gay boys had taken over Dalesford and Hepburn Springs.
Yeah, but the locals don't realise it yet.
Is that just the creation of another ghetto, though?
Well, possibly. People feel safe up there, as long as they're socialising together. I don't think they feel particularly safe when they're out amongst the mainstream.
Actually, one of our Bent TV regulars just came back from a country holiday, and she said it was a real relief to be able to hug her girlfriend in the street again. Yeah. And she hadn't felt safe. It is true that sometimes it doesn't feel very safe to be out and in the country. Were you ever threatened when you were... Did you ever feel threatened?
Well, yeah, professionally I felt threatened, and I wasn't that out there. I would be out to certain people.
How were you professionally threatened?
Well, the attitudes, mostly the attitudes that if I maybe it was my problem, I'm not sure, but if I came out to my patients, I felt my career would be threatened, or my practice, and that I would start to be ostracised in some way.
It is actually very true. I've worked extensively with a lot of rural GPs, and most of them are pretty open-minded. But you wouldn't. I can actually only name a couple of out lesbian or gay rural GPs. I guess that's something. It's a tale of the country, but it is also a tale of medicine, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's not easy to be out and ambitious in the medical industry.
I mean, I've set up a lesbian medical association for this reason, that most of the lesbian doctors in that group aren't out to their patients in any way, and feel that their career would be on the line if they're outed in any way.
So, is that a problem with patients?
I think it's more a problem with the system, with the medical system. It's very conservative.
Yeah.
Still.
Was there a difference between Dalesford and Hepburn Springs and Swan Hill?
Well, Swan Hill, my experience there was 10 years before, so it's hard because I'm sure it's been changing, although with recent events maybe it hasn't. But at that stage I wasn't out at all, so I can't really comment on what it would have been like. And I don't remember meeting any gay or lesbian person up there.
Okay, well
that's
a good hint. I mean, my family came from up near Swan Hill, and I can actually understand the impetus not to. Because sometimes it's not very safe.
Yeah, sure.
You were talking about what's happened recently in Swan Hill. What are you talking about?
Well, there's an incident which has been quite well publicised now that involved a gay guy who was a restaurateur up there and decided to set up a gay and lesbian health day. Started advertising it, getting people involved, and then was pretty much run out of the town.
Run out of the town?
Yeah.
For running a gay and lesbian health day?
Yeah, it drew all sorts of people out of the closet, so to speak, the homophobic closet.
Yeah.
Basically, his business was thriving, and then it became deserted, and also his parents were ostracised.
Well, it is the year 2001, and homophobia is alive and well, even in Swan Hill,
Sure
or especially in Swan Hill.
Yeah.
I guess the theory I was hinting at was the further away from safe havens, the more difficult it is to be out. Is that true, do you think?
Well, no, I think if the community's supportive enough, it could be anywhere. I mean, you could be in a remote town and you feel supported if there's enough of a positive atmosphere in the town.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to Geelong. You're not working in Geelong anymore, are you, Daniel?
In a capacity with Vic Health funding. For working in schools I am, but I'm based in Melbourne now. I'm working in Melbourne.
So what did your job involve?
At the time I was working with the youth services for the City Greater Geelong, and I was running a project for gay, lesbian, bisexual and transgendered young people, and providing information and support and whatever else, doing training for youth workers and teachers in schools.
It sounds like you were converting them.
No, definitely people thought that, and we had a few stories in the paper, the local rag about us trying to convert, and that we're a pack of pedophiles and things like that. But
it is actually a pretty stupid sort of accusation if you think about the sense of danger or discomfort a young GLBT person can have. Is there a special experience of Geelong? I mean, it's not Melbourne metropolitan. It's a regional city. It should. We're not talking about a small one-horse or half-horse hick town here.
Certainly not. Like it's described by a lot of people as semi-rural, and I think the reason why they do that is because it is a regional centre, and there's the metropolitan area in the middle, but there are also pockets all over the place. So there's down the Bellarine Peninsula, there's the northern suburbs, there's the surf coast, which all have particularly different experiences, and you can see how I guess they don't link up as one big Geelong experience. So.
Geelong experience sounds like a very special experience. I mean, what were the sorts of experiences that the young gay, lesbian, bisexual and transgender kids were having that you came into contact with?
What I found was that a lot of them felt between a rock and a hard place, because often they felt like they needed to get to Melbourne. Melbourne was the place that they wanted to be, but a lot of them weren't financially able to. They didn't have the means or the confidence or someone else to go up to Melbourne with, and thus they were...
Because Melbourne can be pretty scary, can't it?
It can be scary, but it can also be, I guess, what Sydney is to a lot of people, and that is, it's this mecca for gay and lesbian people, and once we get there, we're there and we're fine, and everything will be there for us. Whereas what that stopped a lot of them doing was, I guess, looking around their own town, which, you know, by all means did not provide visibility and a lot of options for them as well. So that was understandable.
So what sort of problems did they have?
I guess, by and large, when I was coming across young people and they were utilising the project, it was all about needing to speak to a person, needing to speak to a person and just get it off their chest that, you know, hey, I'm having these feelings, or I am gay, or I am lesbian, blah, 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 blah. The other stuff about just wanting, I guess, information as well.
Okay. Well, talking about information, Ian, you've been involved in providing information to people in a range of jobs, but you're currently with Family Planning Victoria. What's family planning got to do with sexuality? I mean, if you're not planning a family, would you actually be talking about gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender experiences?
Yeah, absolutely, and I guess in a couple of areas. I've been working with family planning for several years with HIV/AIDS funding to work with young people who are seen as marginalised in terms of their access to sexual health services and resources. And so that's always included GLBT young people. It's a statewide project, but we're based, you know, right in the middle, smack in the middle of Flinders Lane. And you know, I think for a time when we began that project, there was almost an expectation that if people could find their way into Flinders Lane, then we'd look after them. But otherwise, it's kind of bad
That is
luck.
one of the problems with country people, isn't it? Because there's the assumption that if you set up something in a city and call it a statewide program, you've solved the whole problem.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you have a 1-800 number?
Yeah, we do. Yeah,
do, so
and
country
always
people
have
can
had
ring
with
you.
this project. Yeah.
Do you get many country people ringing you?
We do actually. We get quite large numbers of young people, but I guess what, you know, we're really clear that even with the 1-800 number, we're still not offering them equity of access to the kids who can actually drop in. So the major focus of my last couple of years has actually been to go out to various rural centres, and rather than try and work directly with the young people on a sort of fly in, fly out basis,
Yes.
it's actually to work
Travelling
with...
sexual counsellor,
Yeah, that's right.
MCL.
Which would be kind of fun. But basically, when I'm out away from the city, I'm more often working with youth workers or with teachers or with community health workers, so that we can give them the info they need.
Okay, that's good. We're out of here for blah 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 for the moment, but we'll be back in a very few minutes after this sponsorship announcement and community support announcement. Hello again. We're back out in the country on blah 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 on Bent TV. I'm Ralph McLean. I've got Ruth McNair. I've got Drew Dax. I've got Ian Sill, and I've got Daniel Witthouse with me. And we're talking about being gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender in the country. We were talking about Swan Hill before, and Scott Wheatland's festival, the Breakout Festival in Swan Hill, and that's the 24th and 25th of February. Even though and Swan Hill hasn't been very kind to him, they're still going on with it. On the Saturday there's guest speakers and a dinner. On Saturday night there's a drag queen show, so we can have drag queens anywhere. I guess that's probably almost inevitable. And on the Sunday there's a barbecue, swimming and a general get-together at the Sundowner Resort. So if you want to pop up to Swan Hill for the 24th and 25th of February, I'm sure the good folks at the Breakout Festival will welcome you. They'll there's details available from 0408 145 639. Or if you like to join the Bent TV viewers e-group, all you've got to do is go to groups.yahoo.com and Bent TV, one word, no underscore, no space, and we'll post the details to you through that e-group. That's good. The other contact details will also flash up later on. Now, we're talking about being out in the country. We've talked about Swan Hill, Dalesford, Hepburn Springs. There's been some good work done by various groups in pathfinding being comfortable about being out in the country. The Country AIDS Network apologised for today. They really wanted to be here, but they had a big joint meeting with also, who've also done some good work in working with gay, lesbian and bisexual and transgender groups. The also contact details are now on our screen. Ian, you were talking about working with Family Planning Victoria. Have you also worked with the Also Foundation?
Not actually worked for them, but in collaboration with them, I guess, on a few different things. And I think that's really marked a whole lot of the, what's been going on in rural areas in the last couple of years.
Have they just been getting on the rural bandwagon? They're suddenly recognising that the country's there and it doesn't need to get kicked in the guts all the time. Not that I'm betraying any sort of bias towards the country here.
I think that often, agencies and organisations can kind of get their heads around, well, this is what we need to do for the whole world, and then this is what we need to do for the country. It almost comes afterwards. But I think that the kind of organisations that are out there doing stuff at the moment have shown a commitment over time, and the sort of strategies that they're using actually aren't about just going out there and chucking something at the country and then scurrying back to Melbourne. I think that they're working very hard to ensure that they're setting up programs that are ongoing.
So are they different programs because they're in the country?
They're not necessarily different in terms of what they're trying to get out, but I guess there's different issues, particularly for young people. We know that if we're setting up a group, for instance, a support group for young people, that the geographical stretch that we have to sort of look at to get enough young people to come to a group in the country is going to be much greater. And there's issues about how do people actually get to the group, when there isn't public transport between towns or when everyone in one particular town knows who they are and that kind of stuff. So those sorts of issues are different and need rethinking.
Or the greater likelihood that you're going to be alone. I mean, I remember being a little, not a fat middle-aged homosexual, but a fat little country gay boy, and I didn't know any other gay kids in my town. I thought I was the only one. I mean, how dumb is that? But I was. I mean, I was alone. So of course I'm a hypocrite in terms of my view that you should be able to be out in the country, because I've run off to live in the city. What sort of sources of advice, apart from travelling sexual counsellors like you, do people have if they've got questions about their sexuality, or if they know they're gay and they want to come out?
I guess, wherever possible, we're hoping that people can be linked in locally rather than having to ring a 1-800 number or something. And I think increasingly community health centres can be relied on as a place where, perhaps there will be some people that you can talk to.
Would community nurses be better than country doctors? Ruth, do you reckon community nurses be better than country doctors in being helpful?
Not necessarily, but possibly. Because I think a lot of the nurses have a better connection with adolescents. Having worked perhaps with schools, local schools, or talked with parents and understood from that angle as well. And there might be a sense that it's more confidential with the nurse.
That's assuming you could find a nurse or find a doctor in the country, which is also a problem.
Yeah.
Is it also a problem even in a big regional centre like Geelong, Daniel?
So,
I mean, finding the right sort of person to talk to?
it certainly is, and often we have found that GPs with young people often a big referral for us in our project. So young people actually going and disclosing to their GPs, especially in terms of a young people's health service that was down there, that was set up just for,
This is Clock Tower?
It would be Clockwork, yeah.
Clockwork, yeah.
Yes, Clockwork.
So that's actually a pretty big step for somebody to say, I think I'm gay or I think I'm lesbian. how do people come to that conclusion these days?
These days, well, it's funny.
Is it easier these days?
It's funny you say easier these days because often in speaking to people, it's often the whole notion of young people have got it easier these days, and it's a largely
I'm just
different
betraying
experience.
the fact that I'm middle-aged and you're young.
Yeah.
I mean, of course I was more oppressed than you.
And I think the reality is that once you've identified yourself, you've located your feelings in your identity, or as much as you can, and then you're ready to talk to someone and to go out and get those options. There are definitely options, more options and opportunities out there for you. But the reality is that when you're young, and you are the little gay boy or the young lesbian out in a country town, you do think that you're the only person in there invariably,
it's
and
true.
that there aren't people out there. And
Even with the internet and TV and radio and
all very powerful tools and things that you can use to link young people in with supports. But the reality is that things like internet, not everyone's got access to that. Invariably in the bush, that's not always going to be the case.
sometimes it's more expensive, sometimes it's slower. Yeah. Oh, how did you slip into this field of work?
By absolute accident. I was looking for volunteer work whilst at uni, and I come across a little gay and lesbian project that was running out of youth services in Geelong, and I thought, hell, they'll need as much help as they can get, and walked in the door and said, hey, I'm here to help. And
So did you do some helping professional course like social work or something like that?
I did psychology at uni,
Okay.
just an undergrad, nothing special, and just went on from there and thought, okay, I'm going to be working with young people for a while, and I'm still in it now. So
Okay. It's not all bad news though, is it?
Certainly not.
Just the fact of being in a minority isn't necessarily a bad thing, is it? I mean, people do. Well, I know a number of people who are quite happy about being out and in the country, and it is actually quite feasible to do it. Is there an assumption from some people that you should be quiet about being happy and being out in the country? Is it easier to whinge about homophobia and the rednecks in the country?
it can be easy to do so, but it can also be quite easy to build up your informal networks. Often I find that a Geelong experience, a typical Geelong experience, is that people find friends and their support networks and their with families and friends, and it's all sort of this informal network that goes on rather than something that's got organisations and dance parties and venues and things like that. And so once people find that they're in their comfort zone, they're quite happy to sit in the burbs.
And in fact, the only way of being gay and lesbian and bisexual and transgender is not going necessarily to the same bar and so on and so on. That's true. Yes. Although we all come here to the Peel, don't we? Yes. The experience of being young and lesbian, was that different in the experience of the kids that you were working with to being young and gay?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that the way that they went about getting support was quite different, and I found that young women were more likely to get support from their friends rather than the young men who sought it from some other figure. So whether it be a teacher or a worker or something similar
now,
to that.
Ruth, you had a lot of lesbian patients in Hepburn Springs. You were madly disclosing there, weren't you?
If only.
If only, no.
Now I've got a lot of lesbian patients.
Yeah. But practicing in Hepburn Springs, did you find there were any special things that you had to do as a GP in Hepburn because there were so many lesbians there?
Well, actually, I did anaesthetics up there, so I didn't get to see people that often. But I ran a youth health service in Melton, and that was very interesting. One-to-one, the girls were quite happy to disclose, and I agree that often they'd already got some support from their friends, close group of friends, whereas the guys hadn't been game to talk about it.
So you think it might be a little bit easier to come out if you're a lesbian in the country?
Well, no, I think it's quite different. I think often there's more invisibility and more people accuse you of being bisexual or not quite sure yet, or swinging or whatever the term is,
Yeah.
And so I think maybe a lot of girls come out a bit later.
Well, I mean, I had a brief bisexual period. Drew, you've had bisexual periods, haven't you?
Yes, quite a few.
Yes. Now, you grew up in the country, Drew.
Or you spent some time in the country?
From the age of 10 until 15, I lived in the country.
Okay, that's pretty formative. You see what can happen if you do what? Warrigal High School? No, where were you?
This horrible Catholic school called Sacred Heart College in a hellhole called Kyneton, which actually
Kyneton, okay.
which is the suicide capital.
It was the rural youth suicide capital for a little while.
So I survived that.
Yeah.
What was the experience of being Drew Dax as a young gay boy? Did you know you were gay?
I got called, puffed and all that sort of shit at high school, but it wasn't really until I came to the city, and I left home at 15 and came to the city at 15 and hit the gay scene at 15. But it wasn't
15, you didn't underage
15 or
drink,
16,
did you?
oh God, darling, I could close all these venues down with just a few words. There is probably a statute of limitations.
Yes, there
I
is.
am old now. It's not like I'm jailbait anymore.
No.
But high school in the country was like just pure homophobia, and like they weren't even like they couldn't have even guessed that I was really gay. They were just picking on me because I was a soft target. As soon as I got to the city, like I was member of the gay community. I was out. It's like I was out at school, and like no one picked on me at school.
So
at Essendon High in 1985.
Essendon was gay utopia in 19...
Well, for me it was.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's
But I
an
think it's
instructional contrast,
I
I
changed
guess.
a lot. In 18 months, it became a lot more vocal and assertive.
Yeah, I guess I can sort of understand that. We're at that point going to finish with this part of blah blah blah. We've got a community service announcement and probably a sponsorship announcement coming up here on BET TV, Channel 31 Melbourne. You're on blah blah blah, you're on BET TV, and we're out in the country tonight. I'm Ralph McLean, and I've got Ruth McNair, Drew Dax, Ian Seal and Daniel Witthouse with me, and we're talking about the country experience, the Geelong experience in some cases. So we had Rick Castro on the show a couple of weeks ago talking about some fetishes that I'd never heard of, and Daniel's talking about the Geelong experience. He's talked about the Geelong experience several times now. I don't know whether that's a new fetish, but I guess we could find out about that at the end of the show. We've done young people in the country. What about old people in the country? Ruth, you must have had something to do with older lesbians and older gay gentlemen.
Yeah.
Is it a different experience if you're middle-aged or old or really old?
It's entirely different.
How is it?
These people are not out in any way. That's my experience with older gay and lesbian people. Didn't find any older transgender people. There's some, I guess, but they're completely isolated. If they're living with a partner, they have 2 rooms set up. I mean, the same stuff you see on the movies. It's just incredible.
So is that a generational thing, or is it a country and generational thing?
I think it's probably both, but particularly impressive in the country. They would never be seen going out together as a couple.
What, even in Dalesford and Hepburn Springs?
That's a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, we're talking the average country town. Yeah, it's just unheard of.
Is it better or worse in some parts of country Victoria, say?
Well, I guess it might be. I can't say. I mean, Ian might know, you've been around the country quite a lot.
Ian, what would you say?
I mean, this would be
Is there more redneck? Are there more redneck attitudes in some parts of country?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that where tourist dollars go, I think we tend to get broader communities and diversity of opinion and diversity of attitude. So those places tend to be a little more friendly to everybody.
But if you get to Warwick, Nabil and Hopetoun and Beulah, you are getting into one nation territory in some
absolutely.
senses.
Yeah.
And can we blame Bruce Ruxton and Pauline Hanson and co for encouraging homophobia in the country?
Oh, absolutely. I think we need to be really clear on that people are incited into their attitudes a whole lot of the time, and they, when they lie sleeping, they're not exactly nice either, but at least the rest of us can imagine that the world is okay. Yeah.
Now, I mean, you've done the Melbourne to country experience. Daniel, you've done the country to Melbourne experience. You've sold out too, haven't you? You've said no, it's going to be more comfortable and safe in Melbourne than it would be if I'd hung around here in Geelong forever.
It's not the case. I mean, my particular experience has been I moved up for career purposes and not for comfort reasons.
So you're a careerist.
Not really, but if you could call youth work a career. But
it's actually, you're not going to be a millionaire on youth work wages, are you?
Not at all. I mean, my experience in Geelong, again, the Geelong experience was that I had...
my mind's boggling.
I had my own support mechanisms, as everyone does. I had my network of friends and family, and I was fine down there as far as I was concerned. It's just I thought that I wanted more in terms of career opportunities.
Yeah, and that is one of the reasons why a lot of people do come to the country, and for education, I guess, too. Is it also the opportunity to see bad drag shows?
Yeah, I mean, but the reality is that there's a lot of us travelling up,
For bad drag shows anyway.
For bad drag shows and other things as well. So
my heart did sink when I saw Swan Hill have got a drag queen show. It doesn't say which drag queen is doing the drag queen show.
Probably the owner of the pub.
Well, it could well have. If it was homegrown Swan Hill drag, then I think I'd be keen to get up to the what's it called? The Breakout Festival in Swan Hill on the 24th and 25th of February. Now, Drew, let's go back to you. You were relieved when you left the country.
Absolutely.
It was experience. Did you have any bad experiences in the country which were instructional or educational? Were you doing the beats? We did a show.
Well, yeah, I was doing the
beats.
beats. Yes, remember last week we were talking about the beats, and I sort of publicly announced I was doing the beats, loitering in toilet blocks from the age of about 11 until 15, and that was from 1979 until 1984.
You were a naughty boy, weren't you?
But I'm a survivor of sexual assault, and the reasons why I was there was not looking for sex, but actually trying to maybe just rediscover what I discovered at 8, if you know what I mean.
I think we're getting far too deep into.
So the fact that I was sitting in a toilet block was symptoms of my own sexual assault.
Yeah.
In a sense.
You knew you were gay or queer anyway, didn't you?
I didn't sort of really come to the conclusion until I'd left home and come to the city. I was like, it didn't take very long. I mean, I give it 6 weeks in the city and I knew what I was doing. And and then a couple of weeks later I was going to gay youth groups and stuff like that.
What were gay youth groups like back in the old days? Because you're living history too in some sense, aren't you?
Meat markets, they certainly didn't have the support, if the support exists nowadays. I suspect they probably do. But they certainly didn't have the support that they claim to have these days, not at all. If anything, I think it was just a meat market, basically. It was just meat markets.
Yeah.
Cruising for younger guys, basically.
That's a cynical attitude towards older gay men.
Well, remember Society 5, Ralph? Remember the people that used to run Society 5?
No, I remember Society 5 existing. I never had any contact with them. I was in the closet. This is back in what, 70s?
Society 5 used to run a youth group called... Society 5 was a meeting place on Saturday nights for gay men. But like on Saturday afternoons they had an umbrella group called Direction, which was part of Society 5. But Society 5 had the lid ripped off it years ago because of, I don't want to get sued.
No, you don't. And we don't. And we here on Ben TV don't want to get sued either. No. What I'm interested in is thinking about the future of being gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender in the country. Ian, you've been working with family planning and in partnership with Also have had a country project. What has that involved?
Also and family planning separately and a range of other organisations have each got some fairly small grants to go out and do some really different stuff. There's a whole range of different models. Also have actually focused on networking the rural groups that already exist to encourage them to support each other a little bit more and work together to support young people. Our own project is actually working in Shepparton, and we're looking at training staff and working in a school as well as with a foster care agency there, and setting up an ongoing group there. Daniel's been involved in a particular project as well, and there's a whole range of different sorts of things
Tell us
happening.
about the project you were involved in, Daniel. Is this was additional to the project, the advice work that you were doing originally?
Yeah, I saw a need, especially with young people coming into the project, to do something a bit more proactive in the schools, and what I did was put together a program called Pride and Prejudice, and as a result, after a few years of piloting that in Geelong schools, I've got some big health funding to actually package that and I guess go around and train up rural schools and teachers to actually deliver that. And I guess it's just one more option for addressing sexuality and homophobia within schools for a broader student, I guess.
That's right, and Vic Health have funded a series, I think, of 12 projects across country Victoria to do similar things. I think focusing on mental health issues, with a base of mental health and concern about rural youth suicide as a result of gender and sexuality issues. Is that a good way to spend government money, Ruth? Or is that like asking... that's a Dorothy Dix question, but...
True. Well, look, I think it is, because it's educating the people on the ground. It's looking at how to change attitudes, and I think this is the way to go for the health system more broadly too, health and school systems.
So you think that might actually have some effect?
Oh yeah, I'd say so, because it's having an effect on the people who are there, because there's recognition. You know, the gay and lesbian kids who are there saying, well, now there's a program just for us, which is funded. It's legitimate, but it's also an effect on the teachers, the health workers, who are seeing money being put into this, and therefore it's legitimised.
It's difficult still to think that it's going to be easier to come out in the country with fewer communities of interest and I guess fewer models too. But I guess only time will tell. We've got very little time left on blah 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 this week. If there was an opportunity to give some advice about somebody who was openly gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, what would the advice you give that person be?
My advice would be to connect with someone. I mean, the study at La Trobe Uni has found that really clearly, that the gay and lesbian youth out there aren't connecting very well, and that's their major problem.
This is the Centre for the Study of Sex, Society and Health. They've done some good work on working out some of the things that are experiences of GLBTs in the country.
So no matter how small the town is, if you can connect with one trusted person, a couple of people, get some recognition, some support, fantastic. You don't have to be in the city to do that.
Drew, what's your advice?
What's your advice? Seriously, I mean, even jump on the internet, make some friends, get contacts, get us a safety web, a support. I mean, even if they're 50 k's away, you can just send an ICQ or something, you know? I mean, I'm just assuming that not everybody has computers.
Not everybody has ICQ either.
That's just one way of, who would want to, but it's just one way of actually
that's another
communicating.
True.
Get a web.
Ian, what would your advice be to the person considering going and being out in the country?
I guess, I mean, we're talking in a similar vein, I guess, but I think that, you know, coming out is always a bit of risk management, and part of that is about, you know, checking out who you can talk to. And I would be looking at community health agencies or a student welfare coordinator or people like that and saying, you know, can you help me?
Daniel, what would your advice be?
I'd extend upon what's been said, and I'd say that whilst the La Trobe study showed that most young people actually had a chance to connect with someone who was studied, there's also that thing of actually trying to keep on going if you get a bad experience. And the other thing, just quickly, was just about peers. Young people are saying that they want to connect with their peers, not just a trusted person. So.
Okay, that's good. We've been out in the country this week. We've been blah, blah, blah. I'm Ralph McLean. We've had Ruth McNair, everybody's favourite rural GP lesbian. And we've had Drew Dax, one of our regulars. You're a regular, aren't you, Drew? You're a regular all the time.
I feel like I should be one of the couches.
Yeah, you are. You are part of the furniture. We're all part of the furniture. We've had Ian Seal from the Family Planning Victoria organisation, and we've had Daniel Witthouse. Thank you all. And see you next week on Bent TV.
This program is proudly brought to you by the Peel Dance Bar, corner of Peel and Wellington Streets, Collingwood.